Quick, run! If you've watched my other videos on YouTube, you know that I like airplanes. I grew up around planes. My father owned and operated a seaplane taxi service here in the Northwest during the 1950s, and I have very fond memories of riding around with my father as he would fly people out to the San Juan Islands. I particularly remember riding in the old Republic CB and that old cloth-covered Piper Clipper. I went on to become a commercial pilot and a licensed aircraft mechanic, and in the 1970s, I went and flew as a bush pilot in the highlands of Dutch New Guinea. Now, when I came back to the United States in the early 1980s, I did not continue on flying, and for the past 10 years, I have not flown a real airplane. But I get my airplane fix now by flying model airplanes. In the late 80s, I got interested in flying RC, or radio-controlled models. And the very first model that I built was a Carl Goldberg sophisticated lady. Take a look at that. Now, back in those days, you old-timers will relate to this, we got this as a box of sticks, and we had to spend hours gluing all the sticks together and sanding them. Then we had to get plastic covering and put on it and then iron it down, and then use a heat gun to shrink it. And this was a lot of work. Take a look at the size of this wing that I had to build. I had to lay it up in a jig on a bench and get it all straight, and then also cover that with plastic film. Notice I survived those early flights. And I can remember my brother getting on a little hill and giving this thing a toss. Man, I was so nervous, I was shaking, you know, as I tried to control this glider as it went down and landed in the field. But this was the beginning. And then later, I built a Carl Goldberg Eagle II with a Fox 40 glow engine on it. And I know that's going to bring back a lot of memories for a lot of you as well. And that's what I learned how to fly a full 4-channel model airplane on. But once again, I had to build that from a box of sticks. And here, look at this one. This one also survived. This I built in 1990. This is a pilot model of a Pitts biplane. And you know, you can see all the work that went into building this with balsa and plywood, and then I had to cover it. And look here, I had to, you know, cut these pieces of white covering to iron on to get the stripes on. But you know, I really enjoyed that. And so, you know, during the early 90s, I was heavily involved in the hobby, but I started a business in about 1995, and I no longer had time for model airplanes. So I kind of set the hobby aside, but about 4 years ago, I decided, you know, I need a break from working so hard. And I wanted to get back into the hobby. And boy, I could not believe the changes that had occurred in that time. Take a look at this Fokker Triplane. Now remember, I used to pride myself in the quality of building I could do and the covering I could do. This Fokker Triplane came completely built. Now granted, I had to bolt and glue the wings on and glue the tail on, but the plane came all covered and ready to put together. And this cost me $89. This Pitts biplane, over 20 years ago, cost me $120 just for the box of sticks. And then I had to go and get the covering and the glue and all the other things to put it together. So now it's a whole new ball game with all these beautiful models being built, and there's no end to it. I mean, look at this. I can now get into micro model airplanes. And recently I've started flying helicopters. Now, if you want to keep that brain stimulated in your old age, I highly recommend that you try flying real helicopters like this one here. Not those little toy ones with the twin rotors, but single rotor collective pitch helicopters. Now that's a challenge. And the other thing that's happened is a lot of these models are now being built with foam. And you can see here that this seaplane is a foam model with an electric motor, takes you a few hours to put it together, and off you go. And I fly this on the lake, the same lake that we used to fly on with my father as a young boy. So I'm pretty excited about the hobby. I love flying EDF jets. I like flying those big gas models with the huge big wingspans. And, you know, basically I love the whole hobby. And there's so many aspects of it. And for me, I think the number one thing is the challenge, the creative challenge of problem solving. Because when you get into this hobby and you start to really push yourself, either whether building or flying, or like flying the helicopter, you're constantly solving problems, you're constantly creating different situations. And I find that very challenging and very stimulating. You know, it's interesting, I mentioned Carl Goldberg at the start of this video. Believe it or not, today he would have been 100 years old. October 27th, 2012, that would have been his 100th birthday. And many consider him the father of model aviation. You know, if you want to know more about Carl Goldberg, you can just, you know, Google him and find out the history. He was a very creative model designer and model flyer for many, many years. So as kind of a tribute to Carl Goldberg, I've decided to do a series of videos on building, flying, maintaining model airplanes of all types. This would include foam models, jets, helicopters. And if you're interested in any of these videos, I might ask you to just chime in and let me know what some of the subjects you would be interested in. I'm going to cover LiPo batteries, electric motors, EDF. Now EDF means electric ducted fan. These are the new electric jets. And I'll get into some building tips and some of the things you'll need to understand when you really start building large models. But I won't have time. I just want to warn you, I won't have time to answer your direct questions to anything in this video because I am not retired yet. I still run a business and I'm still very busy. But I would like to do a series of videos. If there's any subject matters that you would be interested in, just, you know, put them in there, put your suggestions down in the comments section. And then I will, since I can't change this video in the future, I will take and revise the description that you see below, and I will give you updates on any new videos that are coming out for RC model flying.